Since the 1960s, gun control has been a staple of American democracy. The Second Amendment has come into its own concerning the American public today. Before then, it was rarely talked about. Today is a hot-button issue that we're all concerned about and sometimes decides the result of elections. So, today, our presentation is going to be about increasing knowledge about the issue of gun control to hopefully lower the issues of gun violence in our community and against the public.
All right, Mr. Landon, how many lives are saved annually by guns?
Anywhere from 500,000 to 3 million lives are saved by guns annually, according to the National Safety Council, the CDC, and that's only including reported cases. So in most cases, the simple brandishing of a firearm can ward off a would-be attacker.
Good to know. Good to know.
Hi, Daniel. I have a question for you. Does access to guns make Americans safer?
Access to a gun in domestic violence situations makes it 5 times more likely that a woman would be killed. And most people who commit suicide do not die unless they do so with a firearm. The average suicide rate of death is 5%. With a gun is 85%. So tell me, looking at these statistics here, do Americans gain some semblance of safety from guns? Or are guns part of the problem? In other developed countries, they don't have these issues. We do. This is a new age in America, and we have to come up with new solutions for it. Thank you.
Hi, Ms. Andrews. I have a question for you today. What is the #1 thing that needs to be done to help reduce gun violence?
To reduce gun violence, for starters, we need to put more rigorous requirements for owning firearms. For the most part, it is much easier to obtain a gun than to get a driver's license in the U.S.
Mr. Landon, what is the gun show loophole?
Ma'am, thank you for your question. The gun show loophole is the false idea that people can go to a gun show and buy guns from a federal firearm licensed dealer without going through a federal background check. How this came about is people go to gun shows to sell guns privately, because that's why people go to gun shows, is to buy guns and sell guns. So in a private sale, you don't have to go under a 4473 federal background check, being that not everyone has access to the NICS check system. So that's basically how that came about. But you cannot go to a gun show or any brick and mortar store and buy a legal firearm without going through a federal background check.
I have a question that goes off of that one too. I thought in the state of Louisiana, you weren't required to have a background check.
No, throughout the entire United States, you have to undergo a federal background check to purchase a gun legally. Now, through a private sale, like if I sold a gun to you, I mean it's a private sale. We don't have, like me and you don't have access to a e-check system. So
Would that be considered a legal sale then?
yes, a private sale of a firearm is completely legal.
So you could.
At this time, we will be taking a quick break, and after, we will bring up different representatives to speak on this topic.
Ms. Abigail, would you say that you need a firearm in order to defend yourself?
Well, my first question, Ms. King, is to defend yourself from what exactly?
Let's say my husband beats me and it get escalated and I need to defend myself.
Well, did you go as far as getting the police involved in this before you decided to handle it yourself?
No, my phone was not nearby.
I would also like to point out that when most violent situations happen, the cops often get there too late. So would you rather put that on waiting to see if the cops going to get there within 10-15 minutes, or try to preserve your life in grabbing your firearm?
That is an excellent question, and I don't have a definitive answer for that. I'm going to pass it on to my counterpart.
Well, thank you, Ms. Murphy. I feel like guns are readily available, so it's probably best to use the gun in a situation like that where the cops won't be able to come in at times.
Ms. Lopez, I would like to know how mass shootings differ from your typical local gun violence.
Thank you for asking that question. In no cases civilians fired back in mass shootings. Also, in mass shootings, the guns were legally obtained in 79% of the cases. And studies have shown that in mass shootings that the person that was shooting, they had mental problems. And in 2 of the cases, the mental problems were there before the mass shooting. They were obtained by medical researchers that they had issues.
If you don't mind me chiming in, Ms. Lopez, since you mentioned mental illness, do you think that might be more of the problem than the guns?
Yeah, I think the mental illness chimes into the guns, but that the guns are legally obtained by the mental illness people. So I think they should have a law towards mental illness people not obtaining guns.
Or maybe we set up more help for people with mental illness, because at this point in time, we don't even address mental illness like it needs to be addressed.
I definitely.
I just have another question to follow that one. Do you think mental illness background should be part of a gun registration background?
They do. They have mental illness screenings, and I think as well as a background check, might as well have a mental illness screening in there too. But people take offense to that kind of stuff because there's a stigma on mental illness.
I have a question. Are you familiar with the Sutherland Springs shooting? It happened, I think Sutherland Springs is in Texas. So a man walked into a church and was shooting up a church, and a man that lived down the street, his daughter was either near or in the church, I'm not sure, but she got out and told him. He went into his safe, grabbed his AR-15, and he stopped the man that was shooting up the church. So, how you said that, in no cases of mass shootings, no one ever fires back, that's just one case that does happen.
King, I have a question for you. Are you aware of how many registered guns there are in the United States?
Wow, my team has done a lot of studies and a lot of searching to try to track down these guns, but we have come up with a stat of there's about 310 million registered guns in the United States.
What about the unregistered ones? Is there any record on any of those?
Well, it's really hard to find stats like these, so we are still in the process of collecting because those guns are untracked. They're not marked. And so it's hard for us to find and track down the serial numbers and other such like that.
That is all the time we have for today's press conference on gun violence and gun control. Thank you all for your time, valid statistics, and personal opinions.
America. Every day, we're working towards a solution that can make America safer while keeping Americans' rights at the forefront. This is going to be an ongoing conversation that can't be solved in one session. But what we found today is that by working together and by having a coherent conversation, we can make inroads to solving gun violence in America.
Thanks for watching!